Hey guys, today I want to talk about people that compare the Philippines to the US. Let's do the comparison today. I want to talk about this because a lot of guys, they always write to me and say, well, Steve, you can't compare the US to the Philippines, which is a crap hole. And you know what? It's really not. And we're going to do that comparison today. I want you to listen to this one today because I think it's kind of important for newbies and also for a lot of guys that live here, because a lot of guys that live here miss out on a lot of the areas that are really, really nice areas. We tend to go to the tourist spots. Some of them are kind of they don't have the infrastructure that they really need. A lot of the places in the Philippines, let's face it, the tourist spots, some of the places that everybody goes to, Angeles, they go down to these different islands and stuff like that. They just don't have a lot of really good infrastructure. And we as Americans and as Westerners, we tend to compare what's in the U.S. to here. Okay, but I'm going to get into this even further because as far as living here, there's no problem with the infrastructure in a lot of places. But you have to go to the right places too. Okay, in the United States, we always say, well, we're a first world country. The Philippines is a third world country. You know, you can't compare the two. Well, the United States is in decline right now, number one. Number two, you got places like Buffalo, New York, Lawrence, Massachusetts, New Bedford, Massachusetts, Detroit, Michigan. You got all these rundown, decrepit areas and also you got places in Appalachia, West Virginia, Mississippi, Louisiana. Those places compare on par probably with some places in the Philippines that are pretty run down. Now, I live in a town here in the Philippines. You guys have heard me talk about it a lot. Tracy Martirez. Tracy Martirez, when I first got here, was a little bit rough. It was a little bit like the wild, wild west as far as the politicians go here. And they had a political assassination here. And what happened, the wife ran, and now the place has been flipped. It's an awesome place to live. It was actually a pretty awesome place to live before, with the exception of the politics that was happening here. But I don't want to get too much into the politics here, but I just want to mention that this place has totally changed. Tracy Martirez now is a beautiful town. I actually live right next to the mayor here, and she has flipped this place over and made it a decent place to live. Does it have its problems? Yes, we still have a few problems here, but you know something? There's places around here, and they'll give you, there's different levels. And we always think of like a third world nation, well, there's trash everywhere. Yes, the Philippines has a lot of places where there's a lot of trash, but there's also clean areas like Alabang, BGC, Taguig. There's a lot of places, Davao. There's places in Cebu that are really clean. There's a lot of nice, beautiful towns that are really super clean, where the infrastructure is good, the water, the electricity, there's no power outages. They have everything there. And let me get into this a little bit deeper. You know, the other day, I was walking through Alabang Town Center in Alabang, and it's a mall. And I'm walking through there, and I'm saying to myself, I says, and this place is better than any of the U.S. malls that I've ever been to. It had everything there. It had Dairy Queen, it had Taco Bell, it had Chili's, it had TGI Fridays, it had arcades, it had places that were selling goods there, it had sales, it had Ace Hardware, it had, you know, it had all the stores that you could possibly dream of. It had upscale stores, it had low scale stores, it had Rustans, it has everything that you could possibly dream of in there. And as I'm walking through, I'm noticing something, and I'm saying, you know, there seems to be like some cats running around here. And I could see the cats, but I wasn't really paying much attention. So the next time that I went there, I started paying more attention to the cats to see what was up with the cats. Why were there so many cats in a mall, and why were they allowing this? Okay? And then I found out they have a bunch of cats there, and I think they brought them there. And what they did was they put collars on them. They put nice little collars on them. One of the cats has like a thing on his back. It looks like angel wings as he's running around. I thought it was kind of cute. But I noticed that they have like a veterinarian that goes in there. They have a sign up there. A veterinarian goes in there like once or twice a week to check up on all the cats there. And they feed them like two or three times a day or whatever. They give them water. I noticed that the people in front of the stores are playing with the cats with a cat toy that the probably veterinarian gave the lady, because she stands out in front of the store all day and she's playing with the cats. And they take care of the animals there. And I was like, you know something? In the United States, we don't have stuff like that. You know, if we had stuff like that, people would complain about the cats or something like that. But this mall is an outdoor, indoor mall. So I'm sure that they probably had problems with mice or something. But you know what? They took care of that with the cats. And it was kind of cool watching the animals there interact with the people that were sitting there, that were eating there, that were walking around there, that were sitting in the places where you could sit, where there was, like they have like fountains there and stuff. It was really beautiful to watch all that, because the cats were interacting with the people. They're rubbing up against their leg. They're friendly. They were clean cats. There are cats that you would probably want as a pet. Unlike other places, where you see the feral cats, the feral dogs, they're losing their hair, they're bald or whatever. I was really kind of touched by that, actually. I was like, wow, this is really nice. You know, there's places in the Philippines that you can go, and it's very Western. And in some places, it's actually better than in some of the Western places, and it's better than some of the places in Europe and the United States. You come here to the Philippines, you really can't compare the U.S. to the Philippines, because the U.S. is almost the same as the Philippines now, kind of. It's in decline. Okay, there's a lot of places in decline in the U.S. You have 1/4 of the country, basically, that's going to probably be without water pretty soon. And the Philippines has plenty of water here. It's one thing I can say. We have plenty of water here. It rains all the time, in some sections of the Philippines. In some places we get our dry times, but we usually always have water. We don't have to worry about water. And it's fairly clean water. I mean, I wouldn't drink it out of the tap, but this place back home, I wouldn't drink it out of the tap either. In Lawrence, Massachusetts, it wasn't the best water. It wasn't something I would drink out of the tap. In many places in Massachusetts, they tell people not to drink out of the tap. The other thing is, people compare the lakes and rivers of the United States over here to the rivers, the rivers around here, and they say, well, geez, Steve, the rivers back home are nice and clean. But they're not. I can remember fishing in the Concord River and going underneath the bridges in a motorboat, even as a kid, and says, do not eat the fish, mercury poisoning. So, I mean, over here, yeah, we have tons of trash in the rivers and stuff like that, but it's back there, they dump chemicals in there and things like that. So, I mean, what's the difference? Yes, we in both countries, we both have our issues, but sometimes when you drive by a lake or a river in the United States and you look at it and you think, oh, that's a beautiful river, or that's a beautiful stream or whatever, and there's PCBs in there, or there's some sort of chemicals in there, or there's mercury in there, or what have you. You know what? It's hidden pollution. Over here, yeah, it's right out in front of you, but the United States, they don't care if you can't see it. People don't care. They don't worry about it. And over here, you see it in front of you sometimes. But you know what? When I was over in Alabang and I was looking around and I saw things over there in a totally different light. Yes, the water there is still slightly polluted in some places, where the streams are running through. But I saw fish there. And there was tilapia there. There was turtles in the water. And you could feed the turtles. You could feed the ducks over there and the birds over there. There was places to sit. There was parks. Beautiful parks without trash. And there's places in the Philippines that are like Buffalo, or like the Bronx, or like parts of New York or Chicago or whatever, that are bad and they're crime riddled or whatever. But something, most of the time, like in my town here, you know what? We don't have much. The town here is probably equal on par or more people here in the town that I live in here compared to Lawrence, Massachusetts, which is a city also back in Massachusetts. And I'll bet you the school here is probably just as good. I'll bet you the housing here and the people are just as good, and the politics here is less dirty here than it is back home. We had one of the worst mayors in the United States there for a while back in Lawrence, Massachusetts. I mean, he was terrible. And here we have a great mayor. We have this. Every place is different, and we have to stop looking at it like, okay, my country is better than that country. Because there's sections of your country that are a toilet just like they are here. There's sections of the Philippines that are not great. So we have to start looking at places differently than we usually do, because we can't be comparing U.S. to Philippines. We have to take town to town, province to state, and we have to look at it that way. Because the U.S. has its bad areas. Philippines has its bad areas. We always tend to look at the bright side in the U.S., when actually in reality now the U.S. is in deep decline. Cities are declining. Crime is up. Every gas prices are up, inflation's up. You know what? The inflation rate right here in the Philippines is less than it is in the US. Living is different. The cost of living here is cheaper mostly because of the rents here. Rents are cheap here. I can go live in Alabang or BGC or some of these places like Taguig and some of these beautiful towns and beautiful cities to live in. I can go there, and you know what? I can live better there on $3,000 than I could back in the U.S. I could live better there. Granted, the cost of living in Alabang is probably on par with some places in the U.S. Okay, but it's still, I'll bet you, I could get a better style of living over in Alabang or in BGC or Taguig than I could in the U.S. and for a cheaper price. I could live in a better house. I could get a better view. I could have better people around me, friendlier people. I could probably even have a maid if I wanted to. The hospitals could be just as good in those towns as they are back in the U.S. in some towns. You know, hospitals back in Boston, we had the best hospitals in the world. I'm not going to argue about that. You know, but in the Philippines, we have great hospitals here too. You just got to look and find them. There's St. Luke's, there's many hospitals. In Alabang, there's many great hospitals. In fact, there's many great doctors in Alabang too. And also, you have to remember, Alabang is where all the wealthy people go to live. Taguig, BGC, same thing. They have a lot of the stars that are on TV here. They live there. The famous doctors, the famous politicians, and wealthier people tend to live there. So you get if you're looking for a wealthier lifestyle, that's the place to go. But if you're living on a lower budget of like $2,500, you know, and that's a high budget for some people. I understand that. We're not talking about really low ball budgets. I'm talking about people that are living in the sweet spot. You could live in one of these towns and you could probably live fairly well on the outskirts of it or whatever and still get the best of both worlds. You could get the best of both worlds. You can have that. You know, I hear all these people bitching and moaning sometimes when they come over here. Steve, I'm not sure I can adjust. I'm not sure I can do it. Well, you know what? If you have the money and you want to live in one of these places, you can live in one of these places and you can live really, really decent and live in a Western style atmosphere with Western goods, Western clothes, Western restaurants, and you can walk around. And there's even in Alabang, one of the great things about Alabang is the bike. They have a bike path. Almost anywhere you go on the side of the road, all over Alabang, they have bike paths, and you can ride on the side of the road and you can ride safely, because it's set just for the bicycles, and you see people riding their bicycles all over Alabang. It's phenomenal. It's great. You know, it's something that a lot of people miss out on here in the Philippines. They don't look at these places like that. There's also places now in Manila. Near Double Dragon and near the Mall of Asia. Guess what? They're making it more user-friendly there for people that want to ride their bikes and stuff, like an expat. If he wants to go out and ride his bike on a Sunday or during the week or whatever, they have that. They have a bike path that you can ride around and go to different stores and stuff like that. Park your bike, lock your bike up, and go in and go have a nice dinner or whatever, and ride back to your apartment or whatever. And apartments around some of those places are still fairly reasonable and cheap to rent. They're very cheap compared to the U.S. You could live right in the city, have a city-style life just like you're living in Hong Kong or Singapore, if that's what you want. Now, granted, we have people out there that want to live the provincial lives. They want to live on a farm or whatever. And I'm talking differently. We're comparing apples to apples rather than apples to oranges, which is what most people do. What I'm trying to do here is try to get people to understand that what people think of the Philippines often can be a lot different when you look in the right areas, you know. And yes, you can come over here, and yes, you can find a place you can live on $1,000 a month, but you're not going to live well. Let's face it. We've talked about that before. Everybody knows we've talked about that. We've covered that 10 times over, probably, you know, about living cheap here. It's not living good. You know, 1,500, you can live a little bit better. 2,000, you're living a lot better. 2,500 to 3,000, you're living way, way, way better. You know, it's a huge step up to go into that sweet spot budget that I talk about so often. You know, but guys, We gotta, when you come over here, don't go to the places like Angeles or these Tondo or places like that. A lot of guys go seek out these places because they're cheap or whatever. They go to these islands where living is not fun, or some of the cities that aren't the greatest cities in the Philippines. Go to the places that have good infrastructure, places that are really great to live, that you can live in harmony and peace and not worry about crime or whatever. Go to those places. Seek those places out. My town here, it's not the greatest, it's not the worst, but you know what? I can get to all these places fairly quick just by jumping in a shuttle. I'm in the middle of everything. I'm in the middle of being near Tagaytay. I'm near Batangas. I'm near Alabang, where I'm probably going to end up going tonight. I'm near Manila. I can go up to BGC, the Venice Mall, if I want. The Venice Mall is like being in Europe. They got that little canal. You can jump on one of the gondola boats and go for a ride around there with your family or what have you, or your girlfriend or your wife. That's what people miss in the Philippines. They miss the places that do have the great infrastructure. We always talk about the sucky infrastructure of the Philippines. Well, you know what? There's places in the United States that have sucky infrastructure too. And we have to kind of, compare fairly here. If I compare Boston or Lexington, Massachusetts, or Concord, Massachusetts, really nice places, and I compare it to Tondo in Manila or places like that, is that a fair comparison? Or if I compare it to Angeles, not a fair comparison, because it's not equal. It's not the same. We're not talking about, apples to apples. We're talking apples to oranges. So let's be fair here. A lot of guys come here and the first places they go is where some poor girl lives. The girl tells them to come down here and stay here with me, and then they see it and they're like, I don't know if this is for me. I don't know if I can live here the rest of my life. I'm not sure that I'd be happy here. They take them to some village that's really poor or whatever. There's no infrastructure. There's no stores nearby. The nearest mall is 50 miles away or 25 miles away, and they can't get there easily because they don't have a car. So what are we supposed to think? What is that person supposed to think when they get here? They think it's a dive, it's a dump, it's junk. We have to get away from that and think differently. Put on our thinking caps. A lot of guys, when they come here and they first get here, they don't research, they don't think. The first places they want to go is where the girls are, and that's usually the poverty-stricken places in a lot of cases. And you can find nice girls in Alabang. Yeah, they're a little bit wealthier, but there's also girls over there that aren't as wealthy. But you can also find nice educated girls over there, and in BGC, places like that. And yes, they will date you. And yes, you can. I've talked about this before. There's doctors, dentists, lawyers that'll date expats over here. They're here. You got to look. You got to find them. A lot of guys, they go after the poor girls with no education. That's the first thing they want. You can't even wake up and have a conversation with them in the morning. Find a girl that has a good head on her shoulders and has an education that you can have a good talk with in the morning. You can have a conversation with, But guys, most of all, when you come over here, compare apples to apples and oranges to oranges. If you want to move to a nice city, look at a nice city. Find it. God bless, guys. Take care. Love you.